words of any value to those he wrote then. Perhaps in conclusion it may be as well to repeat what was said in the introduction to a former volume, that these letters make no pretensions as literature. They are, as indeed is all that Whitman has written, as he himself has over and over again said, something quite different from that, something much less to the average cultured and learned man, something much more to the man or woman who comes within range of their attraction. But doubtless the critics will still insist that, if they are not literature, they ought to be, or otherwise should not be printed, failing, as is their wont, to comprehend that there are other qualities and characteristics than the literary, some of them as important and as valuable, which may be more or less adequately conveyed by print. R.M.B. End of preface. Section 2 of The Wound Dresser by Walt Whitman. The Great Army of the Wounded. The military hospitals, convalescent camps, etc., in Washington and its neighborhood sometimes contain over 50,000 sick and wounded men. Every form of wound, the mere sight of some of them having been known to make a tolerably hardy visitor faint away, every kind of malady, like a long procession, with typhoid fever and diarrhea at the head as leaders, are here in steady motion. The Soldiers' Hospital. How many sleepless nights, how many women's tears, how many long and waking hours and days of suspense from every one of the Middle Eastern and Western states have concentrated here. Our own New York, in the form of hundreds and thousands of her young men, may consider herself here. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and all the West and Northwest the same, and all the New England states the same. Upon a few of these hospitals I have been almost daily calling as a missionary, on my own account, for the sustenance and consolation of some of the most needy cases of sick and dying men for the last 2 months. One has much to learn to do good in these places. Great tact is required. These are not like other hospitals. By far the greatest proportion, I should say 5/6 of the patients, are American young men, intelligent, of independent spirit, tender feelings, used to a hardy and healthy life. Largely the farmers are represented by their sons, largely the mechanics and working men of the cities. Then they are soldiers. All these points must be borne in mind. People through our northern cities have little or no idea of the great and prominent feature which these military hospitals and convalescent camps make in and around Washington. There are not merely 2 or 3 or a dozen, but some 50 of them, of different degrees of capacity. Some have 1,000 and more patients. The newspapers here find it necessary to print every day a directory of the hospitals, a long list, something like what a directory of the churches would be in New York, Philadelphia, or Boston. The government, which really tries, I think, to do the best and quickest it can for these sad necessities, is gradually settling down to adopt the plan of placing the hospitals in clusters of 1-story wooden barracks, with their accompanying tents and sheds for cooking and all needed purposes. Taking all things into consideration, no doubt these are best adapted to the purpose, better than using churches and large public buildings like the Patent Office. These sheds now adopted are long 1-story edifices, sometimes ranged along in a row, with their heads to the street, and numbered either alphabetically, wards A or B, C, D, and so on, or wards 1, 2, 3, etc. The middle one will be marked by a flagstaff, and is the office of the establishment, with rooms for the ward surgeons, etc. One of these sheds or wards will contain 60 cots. Sometimes on an emergency they move them close together and crowd in more. Some of the barracks are larger, with of course more inmates. Frequently there are tents, more comfortable here than one might think, whatever they may be down in the army. Each ward has a ward master, and generally a nurse for every 10 or 12 men. A ward surgeon has generally 2 wards, although this varies. Some of the wards have a woman nurse. The Armory Square wards have some very good ones. The one in Ward E is one of the best. A few weeks ago the vast area of the 2nd story of